former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and the PDP presidential candidate insists President Bola Tinubu is indebted to him and he has not betrayed him. And today, for the very first time, Atiku Abubakar is coming to the public to show and declare his intentions in the pursuit on Tinubu's record, as he insists he will only stop when the Supreme Court says otherwise. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimale in Abuja. We have only one agenda on this program tonight. The menu is pretty much straightforward. Atiku Abubakar's press conference. He has formally declared and stated to the Nigerian people why he's after Bola Tinubu's records in Chicago. And he says that he's going to take it to the Supreme Court and fight. He's not only saying he's doing this, he has called on Peter Obi and Robbie Kwomkwonso to join him in the fight against Bola Tinubu. He says integrity of the nation is at stake. We're dissecting all of these from different angles, legal, political, and all the other issues that you need to know as a Nigerian. Before we get talking about that, because I'm going to be bringing you the major highlights of that, and we'll be getting reactions from every side that you need to know. Let's check out some of your political roundup stories.
The Supreme Court has fixed December 15 to deliver its judgment on the appeal that is seeking to compel the federal government to release the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Mr. Nnamdi Kanu, from detention. A 5-man panel led by Justice Kudirat Kekere-Ekun fixed the date after counsel for both the federal government and the detained IPOB leader adopted their final briefs of argument. Former Education Minister Mrs. Obi Ezekwesili says Africans can change the leadership paradox of the continent by actively participating in politics and rejecting poor leadership. Mrs. Ezekwesili was speaking at the opening ceremony of the School of Politics, Policy and Governance Conference in Abuja with the theme Renaissance Africa, the era of citizens shaping a new leadership model for good governance. The former Education Minister is disappointed that Africa is struggling to fulfill her potential despite the abundance of resources on the continent. The Kebbi State Election Petition Tribunal, sitting in Birnin Kebbi, the capital of Kebbi State, has affirmed the election victory of Governor Nasir Idris. The 3-man panel, led by Justice Ofem, dismissed the petition of the candidate of the PDP, Major General Aminu Bande, retired, for failing to defend and prove the claims that the election was marred with irregularities. And as part of efforts to secure the mandate of the people of Kogi State, the governorship candidate of the African Democratic Congress, Mr. Leke Abejide, is asking clergymen in the state to support his ambition of becoming the next governor. Addressing the gathering of clergymen in Ida local government area of Kogi State, Mr. Abejide says the support of everyone is needed in order to arrest the underdevelopment in the state. And in Gombe State, Governor Inua Yahaya has sworn in 17 commissioners, head of civil service, and 12 permanent secretaries with a charge to them to shun corruption. Speaking at the swearing-in ceremony, Governor Yahaya notes that his administration's successful implementation of the government's agenda for development is not negotiable.
Thank you so much, everyone. For the very first time since the pursuit of President Bola Tinubu's records from the Chicago State University, former Vice President and the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar has openly stated his intentions for going after his former political ally, Bola Tinubu. The PDP flag bearer today addressed a press conference in Abuja where he said Nigeria's reputation is at stake with the controversy surrounding the Chicago State University certificate submitted to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, by President Bola Tinubu. He has now called on Peter Obi of the Labour Party and the New Nigeria People's Party candidate Robbie Kwomkwonso to join his quest for court justice in the certificate saga involving President Bola Tinubu. Let me allow you to listen to some of the major soundbites from that press conference. This one is perhaps the major reason why the former vice president is pursuing that in court. He says this is in the pursuit of justice.
The reputation of our country is at stake. That affects everyone, Nigerians everywhere, wherever they may be in the world. I am a Democrat by conviction and a citizen of a country that I love.
All right, you heard him. And he said that, look, this is not the end point. This is just the means to an end. And that he will stop. But when will he stop? Take a listen to it.
I will only drop the fight when the court rules. If the court rules that I am right, fine. If the court rules that he is right, so that's the end of the fight. Because at the moment we are at the Supreme Court, and there is no any other court than the Supreme Court.
So now, there are all the political issues that are drawn into this matter, which include whether or not, for those who understand the relationship between Bola Tinubu and Atiku Abubakar. Now, don't forget that both of them have been in the same party before, not in the APC, in the ACN, when Atiku Abubakar was the presidential candidate. Well, Atiku Abubakar says, in fact, it's Bola Tinubu that is indebted to him and not the other way around, and he has not betrayed him. Listen to him.
In 2003, the PDP took over all the southwestern states, with the exception of Lagos. I stood between Obasanjo and himself. I said, no, you can't take over Lagos. Leave it. And he left it. So who is indebted to the other? Is it me or Bola Ahmed Tinubu? But there are other things which I would not want to go into. But I vehemently deny that either I stabbed him at the back or did not do him whatever.
He also linked that to the fact that President Bola Tinubu had wanted to be his running mate, and at the time he objected to it as a Muslim, and President Bola Tinubu, a Muslim, he is vehemently saying a Muslim ticket idea is not good for Nigeria. This is what Atiku and how he has put it at that press conference.
Until today, I will not do Muslim ticket. So I don't have to be president because I don't believe it is right for this country. It's not right. Absolutely wrong. We are multi-ethnic and multi-religious. And our government should reflect our diversity and our composition.
Well, it's just snippets of that. China's Television took that live, and you can, of course, go to our YouTube page to be able to relive all the moments when Atiku Abubakar addressed the press on this matter. Of course, we know that Atiku is the presidential candidate of the PDP and had gone to request a document to back his allegation of forgery by President Bola Tinubu of the document obtained from the Chicago State University and some of the issues relating to the real identity of the man who is Nigeria's #1 citizen. There has been an appeal to the verdict of the Presidential Election Petition Court. Let's get talking about this one. Segun Showunmi is the chieftain of the PDP and one of the spokesperson of the PDP presidential campaign, and he himself wanted to be governor in Ogun State, and is one of the closest ally to Atiku Abubakar. He joins us live here in Abuja studio. Thank you so much, Mr. Showunmi, for joining us.
So, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And we'll be expecting Mr. Felix Mocha, who is the National Publicity Secretary of the APC, hoping that he will join us from our Lagos studio. Of course, there is one person who is part of the legal team of President Bola Tinubu. We've not really heard anything from that team and what their own take is. We've heard from the Atiku side. Wale Afolabi is a lawyer and is from Chicago. He joins us virtually. Thank you so much, Mr. Afolabi, for joining us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kimbaloye.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. Let's get the conversation started. And I'll begin with you, Mr. Showumi. There are those who believe that to what end is Mr. Atiku Abubakar up to with his pursuit of this? And he has also said, look, this is not my only, it's not a fight for only myself. Peter Obi, Kwamkunso, join me in this fight. To what end?
Well, I think he acknowledged those two gentlemen in the sense of the fact that they were also presidential candidates. I'm not sure he's building any concave of all come together and start disturbing the system. I don't want anybody to read it that way. He was paying obedience to those who are putting some effort in sustaining the democratic principle, and he was trying to say, gentlemen, we have an assignment before us. What really is that assignment, Sheung? Sheung, there are two schools of thought in law or justice. There are those who believe that truth must be and is always subservient to justice because of the rules of court and looking for evidence and all of that. But I'd also tell you that without justice, that there's nothing you can call justice in the realest of the sense if you leave truth. So I would just say that at the height of this struggle, beyond what the courts will say, because these matters can be sub judice, and we must be careful, is the honor of this nation. And I always tell people that, look, whereas the cloak, that's the cloth that the law wears, is fact, I always say that the cloak that the leader wears is honor. And that a leader or a president, in the case now, is the absolute alter ego of the country and the brand ambassador of that country. Therefore, you cannot begin to trivialize anything that seeks to say that, oh, we have become a people who pretend as if a 25, 30-year-old conversation, we don't have a right to know precisely what the truth is. Who is he? Where was he born? Where did he school? Which secondary school? Which primary school? What's the issue with the university? Must everything be a mystery? And when you have the way the courts and our electoral laws and the rules of engagement, how you front load this and front load that is created, you still have to ask yourself that, is justice in an election dancing into the technicalities that allow clear infractions to be avoided, especially when there are significant and well-pronounced comments of courts, even at the Supreme Court, the highest level, where certificates that are not correct, or better put, forged, information that are inconsistent, date of birth, dates in the, too many things are there. And we have seen situations where the Supreme Court have said, no, if you must lead, if you must come here and we can find any shred of evidence that says that you have told a lie, because of the nature of asking people to come and vote to pick their leader, we have a duty to say no. No, you have to leave. We have seen where I can give you about 4 that will interest you. And every time I remember Kemi Adeosun, I ask myself that, what did she really do? Every time I remember Salisu Buhari, the very first speaker in those days, I ask myself, what did he really do? And Sheung, there are 40 million Yoruba people in the entire globe. That's the estimation. There are 222 million thereabout people in Nigeria. There are 93 million registered voters in Nigeria. The verdict that is in President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's hand is by 8 million people. Shall all of us who are not part of that 8 million now say to ourselves that we are now at the proudest moment of our lives, wherein under deposition, documents are flying about, some saying female, some writing male, some saying he came with a social security number that is tied to a woman. Some, look, let me tell you, Sheung, I know a lot of people who spoke the Bola Tinubu presidency into power. People like my very respected brother, Femi Faabi, who must have their tongue clipped now because they will be greatly embarrassed that is this what we have really become? And you know, Sheung, the painful thing about it is that we want the entire country to pretend as if Atiku is now so guilty because he has the stamina and the gusto to go through all this. Even if nothing happens from the Supreme Court, and if something happens from the Supreme Court, would this not be a line that we should never cross in this country? And I need to put it to you, Sheung, Atiku, this is not the first time Atiku has put himself in harm's way just for all of us. Even if you can't remember any, even though there are a plethora of others and court cases in court, one of them being the fact that a governor cannot just get up in the morning and remove his deputy, a president cannot get up and remove his vice. It's down to Atiku and fighting. The one that all Nigerians must even take a bow for is that, do you know how Nigeria would have become if it was really possible for somebody to stay in power perpetually and somebody had to stand at third time when even generals in this country were mooted? If Atiku has gone to Chicago to go and find the certificate, pray. Why wasn't the certificate produced in the first time? Why is the secondary school, why is it a secondary school that doesn't exist? We have been derobed. People in England are telling me now that nurses are going to have to go and redo their nursing qualification exam. You know why? Because we have now become a nation of cheaters. We have now become a nation of duplicitous people who cannot even, I mean, come on, even the back ends of some other countries. You know what the governments of the countries are doing? They're doing like this. They are whispering behind our back. And Sheung, when we wanted to go on this journey, one day I was on one of those programs, I always try to speak fact. I tried to say to even the president then that is immortality in the villa because the contraption and everything put together does not suggest that this is the best that Nigeria can put forward. And before you start telling me about any genius economic policies, the reality on ground does not even suggest so. That team that he has put together could have been put together for any other person that will carry the honor, the integrity. So do you know how I feel? I feel diminished. I feel that, are these the children of Bafemi Awolowo? Are these the people that Abraham Adesoya and the likes of them in AD, did they know all this and allow it to slide? Must we not get to a position in the world where we're sending like thousands and thousands of emails to one institution to ask for the same record that could have been produced? Did you read the deposition? Even the school itself must bury his head in shame. The school has a right to say, this is totally the position we have and be unambiguous about it. They can't write that deposition in a manner that in one breath you get the impression they are saying, oh, he's with us, he went to our school. In another breath they are saying, we can't validate the society certificate. In another breath they are saying, vendors did it. In another breath they can't find the person that signed it. In another breath,
Just a moment, Mr. Showumi. Let me bring in Felix Mocha and let's get the official position of the APC to what Vice President Atiku Abubakar said today at that press conference. Mr. Mocha, it's good to have you on the program.
Thank you
Give
so
us an
much,
understanding of how this comes to your party. Atiku Abubakar has related this to the integrity of Nigeria. Does your party see it as such? And what are you hearing or what is the president saying about this whole matter?
Well, Sheung, I listened very attentively to Alhaji Abubakar's press conference today. Now, unfortunately, when the press conference ended, I was struggling to actually grapple with the points and the reason for that press conference, and I couldn't put my finger on it, why he actually called a so-called world press conference today. Now, the only thing I can say was that it was simply another occasion by Atiku Abubakar to beat his tattered and empty drum of lies, of distortions, of untruths, of just sheer falsehood. You know, and I'm listening to my good friend, Mr. Showumi, speaking just moments ago. And I'm struggling to understand the point he was making. I mean, look, this is not an occasion to be emotional. I can understand that when you lose an election, especially for a man who has serially lost the presidential election, I can understand that, you know, he is affected by his serial loss. That's an emotional issue for him, and I sympathize with him and everyone around him, including my dear friend, Mr. Showumi. But that's not a reason to just continue to fabricate and make up stories to indulge yourself. Now, I tell you, if you read the documents at the tribunal that was brought forward by Atiku Abubakar, there was nowhere Atiku Abubakar suggested or claimed that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu forged a certificate. The argument, quite to the contrary, was that he didn't go to CSU, the Chicago State University. So when did we go from he didn't go to CSU to now he forged a certificate? And what exactly is the basis for that suggestion? The deposition which they refer to, Mr. Shehu, look, every Nigerian should have access to that document. I have read it from beginning to end. There was nowhere the registrar of the CSU said or used the word forgery or fake in description of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's certificate. Now, what he was presented with was a copy, a photocopy of a certificate filed with INEC, and he made it very clear. He was very emphatic. He says, look, I see that this is a copy. I see that there may be features of that certificate that were excluded by photocopy, by technical, the technical way that document was copied. How does that begin to rise to, what these people are suggesting is, a forgery. A forgery is a criminal, act. And it's not something you say lightly. It must be something you do either with the, with the intention to deceive or with, some other level of, extreme level of negligence that you were completely inadvertent to the consequences of your action. None of this begins to even apply in this case. So you know what? They can keep screaming, but what I hear in this cacophony is simply people who are obsessed with, themselves and who think that they have, if you will, a birthright to be president. And Atiku Abubakar does not have the birthright to be president. Any other Nigerian is, more than qualified to be president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
All right. So quickly, let me ask you, I will show you the positions of the Atiku Abubakar's lawyers and his team and the discoveries, about 4 or 5 of them that they made from the deposition and the releases made by the Chicago State University. But I'd like to know, morally speaking, before we go into law, because Wole Afolabi is with us here, he was one of the lawyers of Bola Tinubu in Chicago. But give us an understanding, Mr. Mocha. Morally speaking, because this was a major thing Mr. Atiku Abubakar drew today at that press conference, does this scenario in any way scandalize your party, APC, and your system, where the propriety of your candidate's qualification is now being debated, which is supposed to be the basics of his eligibility for the office, and is calling to question his identity? Does it scandalize your party? Does it make you feel uncomfortable in any way that the #1 citizen and his identity is allegedly now being debated, not only locally in the media in Nigeria, but at the international scene?
That the presidency, the institution of the presidency of Nigeria is under scrutiny by anyone, whether at home or abroad. I think that credit goes exclusively to Atiku Abubakar. And there's nothing, that is morally embarrassing or disturbing for us in this matter. Now, during his deposition, the registrar of the CSU was very clear. He said that, whatever may have happened at the Southwest College in terms of the label, not, letter F, in reference to gender, that he does not, know about that. But what he knows was that the candidate who was admitted to Chicago State University was a male, and that male is the same male who is today Nigeria's president. Now, he makes the point. He says, look, these errors do occur. In Nigeria here, when you go take a passport, today now, the Nigerian Immigration Service requires people to go to court to depose affidavits anytime there's a slight error, even in the spelling of your name or in the disclosure of your gender or your age. You must bring an affidavit, from the court back to immigration in order for them to actually, continue with the processing of your passport. Now, are we suggesting that because Asiwaju is the president, therefore, with respect to his matters, then, everything about him from the beginning of time must be infallible or ought to have been infallible because he's president today so that he can satisfy the thoughts of those who, some of his traducers? I don't think so. Look, the point I'm making, Shehu, is that we are unnecessarily, I think, transmogrifying the conversation. I would wish that Atiku Abubakar and his, supporters would stay with the real issue they brought to court, which is that this man did not go to CSU. Now, we crossed that, and now we're talking about certificate. And the school has made clear, this certificate in question is a ceremonial document. Look, I am an alumnus of the Harvard Law School. I have a certificate issued to me, back in 1995. Now, if today I go back to get, a reprint of my certificate, it is very possible that it will look nothing like the original one that I got. Because some of the, officials of the school at the time are no longer there. Somebody else will sign it. And
Mr. Mocha, let me quickly shoot this.
So what are we talking about?
Let me quickly shoot this to you, just for a moment.
What are we discussing here?
Yeah. Let me shoot this to you quickly.
Yes.
Your first name is Felix.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
And your last name is Mocha. You are a lawyer.
Correct.
You remember your primary school, your secondary school, and perhaps your university.
Correct.
And perhaps you can be able to tell us on television what year you finished, what year you got into secondary school, and what year you got into the university, and what year you went to the law school.
That is correct.
One perhaps would think those are straightforward information about any person, And I'm wondering, maybe the APC or the president's team might be able to give us those kind of information. Perhaps this controversy, which you have termed unnecessary, might just be doubts. Is that possible? Do you have those kind of information belonging to the candidate of your party and the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Are you able to tell us tonight?
Mr. Shehu, there's nothing you need to know about the president. All necessary information about this president is out there already. There's nothing that is necessary to be conveyed to the Nigerian public about this president and his background that has not already been conveyed. You see, look, I think that if this is about the election that occurred in February, then we need to profile this conversation. We can't just be all over the place. This is disgraceful, quite frankly, that, people at this level will engage and indulge in this level of, flimsiness. I think that the issue here is that there was an election that was contested by the current president and Atiku Abubakar, one of the, candidates who lost in that election. And they have brought forward a case to the court, which is right now before the Supreme Court of Nigeria. I know that every time they speak from that side, they minimize the importance of the court system. They completely speak, in derogatory terms about the Supreme Court, about our judicial system. Now, that is wrong. You can't take a case to the court and then, take the microphone in the public space to denigrate the same court. And then, in the end, when you don't get justice, you complain because you're setting the stage for, the outcome of a terrible case you have brought already before the courts. You are speaking in anticipation. Everything you see said on this matter by Atiku Abubakar and all of his, minions are simply preparing Nigerians for what is clearly going to be, a rough day in court. Because the tribunal judge verdict was on point. It was on point on all material respects. And that's what the Supreme Court is going to be called upon to affirm or refuse. And, we are hoping they will affirm it.
All right.
Because it's sound judgment.
Okay, just for a moment. We're due for a break, but I like, in 60 seconds, I like you to...
Give him like so much time and I only have 60 seconds.
I measured it in time, so you don't even talk about it. I'm measuring it, I'm moderating this, and I'm doing that. So, in 60 seconds before we go on that break, I actually want, because I don't want us to forget and lose focus on it, that's why I wanted you to respond before we go on the break. He mentioned the fact that you are on your party, when I say you, I mean your party and Vice President Atiku Abubakar are fighting about whether or not the president attended CSU. But that has been established. Now, it does look... I'm asking a question, and let me, just for a moment, and that perhaps have been established from the record. Now, give us an understanding, because what we know is that rarely do the Supreme Court admit fresh evidence at that level. Are you bringing in a fresh argument to the Supreme Court this time around?
Sure. First of all, Felix should be very ashamed of himself, and I pray his kids are not watching, because if they are, this is the kind of conversation they will have with him in future. All the important things don't matter anymore because it's like working for them. I'm not like that. The truth of the matter is that, are we even sure that a female document from a school, especially a HSC and a university, secondary school that doesn't exist, produce the entry requirement for a particular certain personality that we can no longer unmask? How can we even be sure he attended? At the heart of this thing is we have it on record among the deposited material. The people in CSU were playing, they were running left and running right. They couldn't even own the entry requirement that says female. They could not speak to the social security number on that entry requirement that is linked to a female with a similar name. How do we even know if the guy went there?
But your argument ab initio is that Bola Tinubu did not go to CSU.
That's the point I'm making to you.
Are you changing your position?
What I'm saying to you is that our argument still stands.
That he did not attend CSU.
We've just gone there. We've just gone there. If somebody wrote on a piece of paper that one mister, does that invalidate the fact that we have evidence under the position that the Social Security belongs to a woman? Is that going to invalidate the fact that we have a document from the entry university that says it's a woman? Is that going to invalidate the fact that he said there's a secondary school he attended, even to that institution that does not exist? Have you never heard of people having similar names? Does Adekunle now become Ahmed? Does the date of birth tally? Do you know what is called identity theft? Do you know what it takes to say this is not the identity? It's just that the information on two documents don't tally.
All right, give us a moment. We'll go on a break. But when we return, I will show you the position of Atiku Abubakar's lawyer, what they said they discovered, and their claims, about 4 or 5 of them. Wale Afolabi will be able to tell us he was in the deposition, he was in court in Chicago. Felix Mocha is here with us. Segun Showumi is on the program. A lot more to unravel right here on the program. We'll take a moment. We'll return after this. Thank you so much, everyone. We see on to Atiku Abubakar's statements today and his reasons for going after President Bola Tinubu's records in Chicago in the United States. He says that this is not about him. It's about the integrity of this nation. Segun Showumi is one of those who are close to Atiku Abubakar, and a member of the PDP. Felix Mocha is the spokesperson of the ruling APC, and Wale Afolabi has been standing by for us in Chicago. He is on the legal team of Bola Tinubu, that very controversial Chicago court issues, and he'll be speaking to us on some of these issues. But I'd like to follow up quickly on some of the things that you said. And I did ask you, I know you are not a lawyer. You might not be able to have a deep understanding of how some of these things work. I asked you, it does look like Atiku Abubakar wants to introduce a fresh angle to his argument at the Supreme Court. knowing full well that it is not a court of trial.
You see, when the friends of these people that embarrass us all talk, you need to puke. And puke means to vomit. They forget that there's something called Section 137(1)J that says that for you to be qualified, even to stand for any office, you cannot present forged or dodgy documents. They forget that in this country, judges have, I can read a judgment for you that was by Buga, of now retired, on this same set of issues. You see, I'm not assuming the rule of the Supreme Court, but they should not do the same. They must not come and tell us here that we have become a nation now. There are no judges in our Supreme Court who understand the essence of jurisprudence, who understands that being a final court of policy, they have automatic powers to do and undo. Why do they have court rules? Why would they come and even start telling us that we're telling them about a global shame for all of us? And they're trying to tell us that their main escape route is legalese. Did they produce a document that the school could certify? The school said they couldn't. In black and white, the school said it's a Nigerian thing. The school said, oh, they can't even go into the entry requirement. If you were not qualified to have entered in the first instance, whatever certificate you're even claiming you got from there is null and void. The school could not explain in clear terms because of the kind of school they are. They couldn't even say that it was a woman that came in or it was a man and this was what happened. They couldn't even own their own bullshit, if I may use, pardon my friend.
Sorry,
yes.
That's a strong language.
It's a strong language.
On television, it's unacceptable on television.
They couldn't even lick their own vomit. The food they cooked, they couldn't eat. Why do I say that? The school said, we have a couple of vendors who will help us to print whatever they print. And because we are such a school of that nature, we don't have a format, we don't have a way of verifying, we don't have a way of authenticating even the ones that you are saying. We didn't issue that certificate. We don't know where he got it from. He could have gotten it from El Dorado or even from Oluwole, very close to his house in Lagos. And you think that decent people will not have this conversation. I ask you, Sheun, flip it back. If this had been, maybe, I don't want to use President Buhari's name, if this had been Mamadou Jallo, that was the president that was bringing this kind of document, do you know how the media would have hounded him? Do you think it was easy for, what's that guy's name, the former speaker, Salisu Buhari? Do you think it was easy for him as a young man to come and say, I'm sorry, I told a lie and left the scene? Do you know what is called the Bushido Code? The Japanese have a Bushido Code that was similar to the code of the Yorubas. When a leader misbehaves to a certain level, the Yorubas tell you, go and open the calabash. That means go and commit suicide. Because we have a phrase that said, death is better than dishonor. How can this man sit down here and be telling me jargons? Look, my brother, the court will do what the court has to do. I'm not impugning the justices. I have all of the confidence in them that on the strength of it, they will look. But let nobody come and start to prepare the mind of the Nigerians as though the court has not even listened to it.
Right.
Did we go all the way to America to go and fish? No, we didn't.
Right.
We went to America because we were very convinced that something was not right. And even when we went there together, you know what they said? They said they would suffer irreparable damage. The document they should have simply produced if they had it. And they were dancing left, dancing right, running up and down the place until we dragged it out of them, and everybody now knows them. They are funnies.
All right. Mr. Mocha, does this kind of discovery or this expedition, if I may call it, in one way or the other taint the mandate of your party, or in one way threaten the chances of your party going into the Supreme Court?
No. It does not at all, Sheun. I mean, there's nothing, said or discovered in the U.S. And by the way, let me clarify something that Shegun just mentioned. The president did not get his lawyers to resist the unveiling of this record, not because he has anything to hide, but because he has, rights, the right to privacy. That's a liberty that we all have. And his right to privacy is not vacated by virtue of the fact that he is president. He retains his, liberty to protect his privacy. Now, this same inquiry was, called in during Obama's term as president. He resisted every attempt to simply, just offload his record into the public space. Donald Trump did the same thing. These are Americans, because in the United States, educational record is protected by statute, by law. So you don't just walk up to any institution and ask for, record. So if today, even you, Shehu, you want to ask for my record, in whatever university, and I know about it, I will resist it, because I'm like, why do you need my record? Because we live in an age now where every speck of record that you put out there in the public space, people take it and mischievously doctor it and transform it into something that you can't even recognize. So you know what? The point here is that the certificate that was submitted to INEC was never presented to the registrar of the CSU. So in his testimony, he simply said, look, this appears to be a photocopy. There may be features of it that were cut out, in the technical process of copying the original. The Atiku Abubakar himself, or even my dear friend, Mr. Shoumi, has not seen the original of the certificate in possession of, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. They have not seen that. So against what really are you comparing the copy that you have, to then declare that it was a forgery? And in that entire deposition, there was nowhere the registrar suggested or used the word fake or a forgery. People are just making things up just so they can, come out of this looking like they went there for a purpose. It was a purposeless expedition, and I think has ended up in utter disgrace, because the real question which was presented was the issue of
because I like to bring
whether or not he attended school, and that has been settled now.
I'd like to quickly bring in Wole Afolabi, but just in 30 seconds. Legitimacy, they say, is a virtue of office or virtue of governance. Do you think that is perhaps a taint on the legitimacy and the mandate of your candidate and that office?
Can I answer that for him?
Just for a moment, the question is actually to Mr. Mocha.
Oh, for me? Oh, I'm so
Mr.
sorry.
Mocha, can you read me?
Yeah, no. Mr. Shehu, you see, no, legitimacy is a very powerful construct, because, it borders on everything else outside of, pure legality. Yes, I understand. And, a way for anybody who has an axe to grind to, discredit or delegitimize an otherwise legitimate institution or individual is to rake up all of this nonsense that we are listening to. That's the way to delegitimize. But they're doing it to the wrong person. They're doing it to someone who is undeserving of all of that. And that's why it's not going to stick.
Let's look at it from another angle. Just remember, Mr. Mocha. Yeah. I like my producers to put up the claims of Mr. Atiku Abubakar's legal team and what they said they've discovered going into coming out of the CSU. And one of their claims allegedly that Bola Tinubu, the president, forged the certificate he presented to INEC when he wanted to run for office. That the qualifying certificate from the Southwest College to Chicago State University bears a female. Now, another point is that the Chicago State University admission application has a claim that President Bola Tinubu attended Government College Lagos and graduated in 1970 when the school was actually established in 1974. Now, they also claim that, allegedly, that the NYC certificate submitted to INEC has Adekunle and the man that ran for office, popularly called Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Let me bring in Wole. Thank you so much, Mr. Falabi, for your patience. This has largely a political dynamics, but give us, there's a lot to unravel, several pages in this whole legal tussle, but I'd like you to summarize it in the best way possible. These are some of the discoveries made, and we had Mr. Kalu on this program 2 days ago, on the side of Mr. Atiku Abubakar. You as a lawyer, on the side of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, give us a summary of the position from the deposition made in Chicago.
Thank you so very much for having me. Good evening, viewers. This was simply what happened. Alhaji Abubakar, through his lawyers, brought an application initially was at the state court in Illinois. And the claim was that President Bola Tinubu did not attend Chicago State University. And then for some reasons, they withdrew that case. And then they went to the federal court, the U.S. District Court. And again, the claim was that President Bola Tinubu did not attend Chicago State University. And then, of course, we met them and we got an affidavit from Mr. Caleb Westberg, who was deposed as a witness. The affidavit simply stated, in effect, that he not only attended the school, but that he graduated from the school. And we also got an affidavit from Mr. Olajide Adeniji, who came forward to say that they were in school at the same time and he contested in an election for the presidency of the student society, and that President Bola Tinubu won. And the President Bola Tinubu that he contested against, the person that he contested against then is President Bola Tinubu, that he has no qualms about it. And this was confirmed at the deposition by Mr. Westerberg. Now, when they were met on this, then they pivoted. They now went to, the certificate that he presented to INEC was forged. And then again, the school simply stated in the deposition that we don't have a copy of the certificate that was presented to INEC. Reason being that the practice of the school is such that diplomas are considered merely ceremonial. They give it to you. What is important to them is that the transcript. They confirmed all the basic information in there, that he graduated on the day that he said he did. And that the reason why they don't have a copy of it is that once they order for a certificate, a diploma, and you pick it up as a ceremonial document, you pick it up, that's it. Now, there was some other person, a litigant, Mr. Enaho Hiba, who requested for a copy of the president's certificate, and the university gave him a copy of a certificate with a different date. It was produced at a different date. And the question was asked, how come you had that? And the university, Mr. Westberg, eloquently stated that the reason for it was that Mr. Tinubu, President Tinubu, ordered for another certificate, but he had not picked it up. And that was why they still had it in their possession. And then they went on to produce to Mr. Atiku's, Waziri Atiku's lawyers, samples of certificates that were issued to students who never picked them up.
All right. So, so from what you have explained, Mr. Faabi, I'd like to ask you some very quick questions, and because of our time, I'd like you to please just hit the nail on the head quickly. Where does the issue of the female come in all of the identity issues around your principal, Bola Tinubu?
Excellent. Now, the transcript that was provided by Southwest University, the male indicated F is clear. That's what is there. Now, all of the other particulars there, they match the information of President Bola Tinubu. Now, the registrar was interviewed on this. I mean, he was deposed on this. Why the discrepancy? And he said, one, the person, the candidate, the person who applied to the school checked off the box of a male and not a female. And that when the admission letter was issued, it was issued to Mr. Tinubu, not to. So the university was under.
Well, it is the preceding. I'm asking is a preceding document before he got into school.
Exactly. It was that.
Why was he reading F?
Good question. Now, the question was put to Mr. Westberg. Mr. Westberg said it is not unusual. And he has been to places. He has been in several universities. He said it is not unusual for there to be such a mix-up. That was what he attributed it to. He said it's possible.
All right. So another point I'd like you to clarify for us from your own standpoint is the discrepancy and the alleged differences in the format and the signatory of the school, the CSU's own copy of President Tinubu's document and that which was presented to INEC. The signatories at the time were said not to be in the school.
Okay, quick question. I mean, let me quickly go back to the issue of CSU now, very quickly. Now, the deponent made it very clear that the person who attended CSU took accounting classes, that the person who attended Southwest took accounting classes, that it could not have been easy for someone who never took accounting classes before to come to CSU and graduate with high honors, that definitely it was one and same person. So that was it. Now, going back to your other question, the school, all that the school said simply was that this document we issued, it says an affidavit to that effect. He said we gave it out, but certificates are signed at the time that they are presented. Nobody's saying that it was signed at the time that he graduated. That is not their practice. It's different. So it is who was there at the time that the application was made to the school that signs. So the person need not necessarily need to have been there in 1979. That's a big difference. That's the mistake that people are making.
But even when it was signed, it was said that those officials were not officials of the school at the time that it was signed.
That cannot be correct. That was not what he said. He never said that at any point in time. He said it was signed. It was signed by those people, and he stood by it. He never, for 1 minute, said that those were.
Mr. Faabi, just give me a moment because I like to take the final and the closing shots of Mr. Showumi and Mr. Mocha. I just have about 120 seconds or less for your closing thought. Let me come to you first, Mr. Showumi. In 6 seconds, your closing shot.
Do you remember the Robert Shapiro issue with O.J. Simpson and the death of that woman? You know, when the guy says the glove does not fit, or does that invalidate the fact that we know what has happened? Sometimes you have to ask yourself. It was Montesquieu that said it, a philosopher of law from France. There is no greater tyranny than that which is perpetrated under the shield of the law, all in the name of justice. What we have done is Atiku has done his bit. He paid obedience to Hudain, he paid obedience to Gani Fawehinmi, he paid obedience to men, and he acknowledged the fact that this controversy has stayed on for more than 25 years. And he has gone out of his way to dive into the heart of it and bring the Nigerians the evidence. And let us now wait and see whether the nation has the moral rectitude to do the right thing.
Your closing shot, Mr. Mocha, just in about 60 seconds, please.
Yes, Shehu, thank you so much. Look, we're a country of over 200 million people. Atiku Abubakar is just one of us, you know, highly respected, former vice president. He has achieved a whole lot. With respect to the election that happened in February, Atiku Abubakar needs to rest. You know, Shegun said something that was very instructive. He said that no single individual is greater than Nigeria, and nobody is greater than the country. Not President Asiwaju, you know, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, not Atiku Abubakar. I urge Atiku Abubakar to stand down in this vain pursuit. This is, you know, extreme self-indulgence, and it's not doing him or the country any good. But if he chooses to continue, the Supreme Court is the final court. We all will await the outcome of this, you know, program at the Supreme Court.
All right. It will be fair if I do not allow Wale to give, even if it's 20 seconds, whatever you left out, 30 seconds for your closing shot, Mr. Faabi.
Well, as regards the FEPRA Acts, you know, Family Educational Rights Protection and Privacy Acts, every student is entitled to it. You know, I have 3 kids. One has graduated college, and I have 2 in college right now. I don't have access to their records unless they give me the permission to. I cannot walk up to the registrar and say, hey, I'm paying tuition, hand this over to me. No, that's the law. No, it's the law. So
Because a lot of people were wondering, where were the lawyers pushing back to give this information? Is that the reason? Is that the premise?
Absolutely. I mean, who would have done a great disservice to...
It looks like Robert Shapiro anyway.
Thank you so much, Wale Afolabi, one of the lawyers on the Bola Tinubu's team in Chicago. Felix Mocha, the spokesperson of the APC, and Segun Showome, a former spokesperson of the PDP presidential candidate, and will run for governorship in Ogun State. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time tonight.
Thank you for having me.
That's our show for today, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless Nigeria.